The phrase one-trick pony is actually super demeaning towards horses, my dear nerds. Oh, your brain is too small and this means you don't know how to do more than one trick. But horses are way smarter than this, and I've always had a problem with this phrase because of this very thing. And we as humans, we started using it everywhere. Everything is a one-trick pony these days. Absolutely everything. We even use this term when it comes to technology. If something has just one use, then it's a one-trick pony. But when it comes to technology, I actually think that this one handheld right here is the embodiment of a one-trick pony, because it's designed, its very freaking design is optimized for it to just do one trick and one trick only. And that one trick is perfect Game Boy Advance. And if you don't have patience to watch the whole video, I'm gonna speedrun the premise of this video for you. It does GBA exceptionally well. When it comes to GBA, that's its bread and butter. Don't buy this if you don't want to play GBA, but if you want to play GBA and if you're more or less an elitist when it comes to GBA, then I'm honestly obliged to say that this freaking thing is your only choice, my dear nerd. So we have quite a bit to talk about here. I am fascinated by this device. At first, I didn't like it. It's as simple as that. I wasn't a fan of it at first, my dear nerds, because it's really an entry-level type of device in an already entry-level segment. And this basically means that even though it's cheap as all heck, it has quite a few things that are simply lacking, and we have to make peace with it. But before I go on, my dear nerds, I just want to quickly say that this specific Powkiddy V10 was provided to me by the nice guys at LitNXT. You know LitNXT by now, it's impossible for you not to, basically. LitNXT is an amazing store where we can go and actually find very good freaking deals on retro handhelds. Like I said in previous videos, I personally like these guys. They are a very good balance between the price that you pay and the customer support that you get in case you have any type of problem with whatever you buy afterwards. But it's very important for you to know that this video is not sponsored in any way. I'm just saying this stuff because I like these guys. Because I'm a biased mother flipper, just like you. We both have freaking preferences. But this video was not sponsored in any way. My thoughts are my own. They just gave me a review unit and that's it. If this handheld would suck, I would be the first one to tell you not to buy this thing. Because I want you to know that when it comes to our relationship, our connection here, you will always get the real poop from me, in a good way. But anyway, my dear nerds, now that the disclaimer is out of the way, let's dive into this thing and let's see what it can actually do. You see, my dear nerds, when I called this a one-trick pony, I didn't mean that it actually doesn't play any other consoles besides GBA. That would be basically a travesty, and that's how you kill a product in 2024. All of these little devices, they tend to be able to play up to Dreamcast, I would say, and some PSP, and well, that's kind of the limit when it comes to these. What can you expect for this price? Especially because this is one of the more cheaper handhelds that you can find out there. I love this retro brown khaki color. Besides the colorway and all the other surface things that we have here, the main thing why you should buy this handheld is because the screen is 3:2, which is the exact same freaking aspect ratio that the GBA had. And this means that whenever you play Game Boy Advance, the ROMs, the GBA games, scale perfectly with 2x integer scaling, meaning that you get to have, and I'm not sure if this will get conveyed on camera, but you get to have absolutely perfect, pixel perfect image. You don't have any way to distort the image here. You would basically be playing GBA how it was meant to be played, without any sort of image sorcery, which you would have to do with filters and shaders and all of the other stuff. But anyway, I don't want you fine nerds to think that I'm polishing this little handhelds behind. There's actually a lot of things which you might not like about it. The one thing that I personally don't like, and it drives me a bit nuts, is these huge bezels around the screen. Why on earth would they make these bezels so freaking big? I don't think that you have to make bezels so freaking huge when it comes to a 2024 emulation handheld. So you have to quote-unquote search within yourself and try to answer the question, how much will these bezels bother you? Like I said, this is basically a budget option within an already budget segment. And there's actually quite a few things that might be, maybe, just maybe, deal breakers for you. This doesn't have Wi-Fi, and this, as far as I know, doesn't have Bluetooth. So when it comes to wireless connectivity, you're basically, you know, lubricated and hugged. I consider it a one-trick pony because it's optimized for GBA. But you can also play all the other handhelds that all of these Linux handhelds play, meaning that you top up at PSP and a bit of Dreamcast. You know the drill by now, most of these handhelds play the same thing. You don't need me to tell you this each and every video, I think. Here's, for example, me firing up some good old NES. I actually missed 1942. This is a cute game. I used to play it when I was a kid, and why do I not know how to shoot in this thing now? There we go. Heck yeah, blah 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 blah. I'm defending my authority, blah 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 blah. You can play SNES, which is kinda cool. Actually, I'm gonna give you a bit more SNES footage over here. Respect my authority. I can't nail down the pronunciation of how Cartman said authority. Authority? I'm butchering this, I'm sorry, my dear nerds. Respect my authority! We can play classic Game Boy. I always loved classic Game Boy. It's one of the very first, actually, it's not one of the very first, it's the first Nintendo handheld that I had as a kid. We can play PlayStation 1 and a lot of other things. Here's some MAME with 64th Street, another game which is awesome, by the way, my dear nerds. You should totally play it. Bam. Respect. I'm not gonna say it. Anyway, you get the idea. You can play a real variety of handhelds slash consoles on this thing, but at the same time, this isn't anything special because you can also do this with many other handhelds that you can find for cheap these days. This one you should only buy if you really want to play GBA in a proper, qualitative, OCD approved way. In fact, this is kind of the main thing about this handheld, my dear nerds. I won't beat around the bush with this video. This should be in your handheld collection, or this should be your first handheld, I mean, if and only if GBA is your priority. If GBA isn't your priority, I don't recommend this. But if GBA is, in fact, one of the main systems that you want, then honestly, as far as I know, I might be mistaken, but as far as I know, this is the only entry-level handheld that has actual proper integer scaling for GBA. I mean, what options do you have out there besides this, or buying a GBA that's refurbished and playing off of that? But these days, to be honest, I would always, absolutely always, encourage people to rather emulate the games that they want to play from their childhood rather than for them to play on original hardware. Because the fact of the matter is that you're old, my dear nerd, and I'm old. And when the GBA was announced, that was over 20 years ago. The original handhelds, we should buy them to keep, to cherish, to collect, but not to use on the daily. They are like they should be retired. The old handhelds are like pensioners now. Take care of your original hardware if you still have that. And what you want to play, just play on emulated handhelds. This is the way, my dear nerds, this is the way. But anyway, going back to this, there's actually quite a few things that I want us to discuss about the hardware here. The hardware itself is actually kind of weird. For example, you may have noticed that this specific handheld doesn't have volume buttons. You have two USB-Cs, and I never understood why most of these handhelds have one USB for charging and another one for storage and other things. These USBs, they can do multiple functions at once. The fact that there's duplication here, I was never a fan of this. Never ever do I think, or will I think, that this is necessary, my dear nerds. But yeah, moving over these two things, actually I should give you a tour of this handheld. We have a reset button, an on-off button, no volume buttons here, an audio jack, the place for the SD card, no volume buttons here either, and we have these digital trigger buttons, which I actually love. This is very, very considerate design from Powkiddy, surprisingly enough. I'm saying surprisingly because they are not known for good design decisions or good quality. And I'm gonna... actually, you know what? I just want to say that this feels way more premium than any other Powkiddy device that I really ever held in my hand. I guess they just got tired of being associated with low quality feeling cheap plasticky devices, and this is a good thing. And when it comes to Russ's Contra Test, I'm actually kind of impressed. You know, the character does move a tiny bit when I move the D-pad around. It moves way more if I push very hard on it, but when I just push on the D-pad left and right, for most of the time it actually stays there. I appreciate this. And there's actually no false diagonals that happen on the Powkiddy V10. I feel pretty much in control here. Oh, come on, look at this tease. Look at how freaking of a tease this is. That's like the best weapon to have there, and it's just out of reach. But anyway, what actually surprised me about this specific Powkiddy V10 handheld is that it's very dependent on hotkeys. You must know the actual hotkeys in order to use this device properly on the day-to-day. You may have noticed a minus and a plus here. These are actually two hotkeys that you use in combination with other things, which I found super weird, but apparently Powkiddy thought it was an ingenious idea to do it like this. And basically what you need to remember is that the minus button tends to the RetroArch stuff. Like if I press the minus button and start twice, it would get out of the game. And then we have minus B, which resets the game, minus Y, which I assume makes a screenshot. I don't know what this is, to be honest. Minus X gives us the RetroArch menu, minus A pauses, and then we have minus in combination with the trigger buttons here, minus an L1, which would normally load your latest save state. I just don't have one here. Minus L2 would be fast forward, minus R2. Oh, I don't remember what minus R2 does. Minus R2 does something, who the heck knows. And then we have minus an R1, which basically saves the game. And that's about it when it comes to the minus button, but the plus button is still there to annoy us with all the retention that we have to do in order to use this thing. The plus button, as far as I can tell, is only responsible for more granular control. For example, minus left and right are basically responsible for the volume. Now you can probably hear Contra. And minus up and down is responsible for the screen brightness. So you can really take this thing down. I don't know who would play it like this. I think this is pretty much with the screen maxed out. Yeah, this handheld doesn't have amazing brightness, so for outdoor use, you would probably need to be somewhat conservative with how you use it. So overall, let's draw some conclusions, my dear nerd. What do I think of the Powkiddy V10? This is such a very hard question to freaking answer. Basically, it depends on your use case. This is the best thing that I can say, honestly. If you're not into GBA, or if you're content to playing GBA on a 4x3 screen, which is the Mio Mini and all of the Anbernic Linux devices, then you most probably don't need this. But if you're a big fan of GBA, if you grew up with GBA and if this is important to you, then you basically have no choice but to get it. Personally, when it comes to me and to me alone, I don't have the organic hardware to appreciate pixel perfect fidelity, meaning that my eyesight isn't as good. It used to be, but it's not anymore, and I just kind of learned to accept this. However, I still see the differences between a proper 2x integer scaling and being basically Satan and playing every freaking handheld, every console I mean, in stretched mode like I do. I am actually a big fan of stretching the image out, and a lot of you fine nerds, you freaked out with that. But you must love me as I am, do not change me. I love stretching to fit, what's the big deal? I also put a sock and a shoe, and then the other sock and the other shoe when I tend to go out. Who the heck puts sock, shoe, shoe? Freaking sociopaths, that's who. So anyway, my dear nerds, just to wrap this up, I will conclude with asking you a question. How important is GBA for you? Is it super important, or is it kind of important? If it's kind of important, then you can basically get away with any other Linux handheld, from the Anbernic RG35XX SP or RG40XXH and all of the others. I still low-key hate that Anbernic would name their handhelds like that, but this video isn't about Anbernic. This is about one's love for GBA, and that's what we need to concentrate on, and that's what you need to ask yourself. Is GBA part of your childhood? If yes, go for it. Enjoy it. It's a very cheap handheld. You can go all out on GBA. I would actually only play 2D, 8-bit and 16-bit games on this, and not because it doesn't support 3D games. Like I said, it can do almost anything that all of these other Linux-based handhelds can. It's just that I don't know why, I can't explain it. I enjoyed this more when it comes to games like this. 8 and 16-bit, I think they feel at home here. Oh, and one more thing that I really loved about this handheld is that it actually has fake hibernate, the same feature that I freaking loved. Wait, this one. The same feature that I freaking loved about the Mio Mini and Mio Mini Plus, but you have to go into tools and in advanced, and you have to toggle it as a setting from there. So anyway, my dear nerd, I'm passing the ball on to you. Tell me, what do you think? Do you like this tiny boy? Do you not like it? Leave your comments and leave your opinions below. And if you like what I do here, please consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, I would personally love you immensely. Subscribing actually helps me a lot. So be a nerd I can rely on. Please tickle the algorithm for me. I would love you very much. And if you really like what I do, consider supporting me directly. You can become either a channel member or a Patreon, and if you do so, I will always feature you on my wall of fame, and you'll have your rightful place in it, along with awesome people like Joy from Joy's Retro Handhelds, TechDweeb, and Ras. Also, I have a Discord. If you want, you can join me over there on the Discord. It's where I talk with all my nerds, and we're all having a very fun time there. But that's about it, my dear nerds. This is a very quick video that I wanted to make on the Powkiddy V10. I kind of like it for my GBA needs, but I can't think of it as my main handheld. That's kind of the thing. But if you do want one, I'm gonna post a link in the video description below. You can get it from LitNXT, and I'm also gonna drop a VladNerd coupon over there, which you can use to get it for a better price. So until next time, my dear nerds, don't forget that I freaking love you. I always did, and I always will. This will never change. See you in the next video. Bye.